subject. Our first article is a big one that's kind of been dominating the news the last couple of days. This is from Cloudflare's blog, Understanding How Facebook Disappeared from the Internet. Because we lost yesterday, what was it, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, I think.
WhatsApp was a part of it,
Which is a big part of it because that's a lot of communication for developing nations and things. So how did this happen, Don?
Yep. So, it was really interesting. I picked... There were a ton of articles on this. I picked Cloudflare's because theirs was kind of the neatest from a perspective of figuring out what the problem was. Facebook has not actually told us what the definitive issue was. But basically, their BGP routes, the Border Gateway Protocol that manages all internet routing, their BGP routes pulled the advertisement for their networks that controlled Facebook's DNS servers. And so once those went offline, you then lost all of Facebook's properties, which included Instagram, WhatsApp, and a couple of other things that were a pretty big deal. And because of this type of problem, it's hard to... Okay, let me back up a little bit. It's easy to make a mistake in BGP, super easy. And then that mistake replicates out across the world fairly quickly, so it's a big deal. It's fairly hard to fix a mistake in BGP, and that's what Facebook learned with their downtime, which in most areas ended up being over 5 hours, which is ridiculous for what is probably one of the most well-funded IT infrastructures in the entire world. To have an outage like that is just insane. So Cloudflare showed what it looked like from the outside. Like they could see the moment the BGP routes were pulled, and they thought the problem might be on their end, because they have that managed DNS, the 1.1.1.1, where it wasn't able to look up Facebook. They thought their system was broken, but then they were able to figure that out pretty quickly, so they wrote up all the research they did. But it was really interesting to see how even if you're stuffing billions of dollars of investment into your IT infrastructure, a simple mistake like this can take all of your properties offline.
Now, are we sure that the internet just wasn't trying to correct itself?
Trying to heal?
Yeah,
There was a tweet that said, it was very funny, it said, this concludes the MIT sociological study.
I actually brought up my favorite tweet that I saw yesterday. It said, people making jokes about the Facebook services going down make me sick. Anyone who was using an Oculus headset at the time is currently trapped in virtual reality. And if they die there, they die in real life.
Oh, that's funny.
People did eat it up. And Twitter and what was the other platform? There were two social media platforms that got a huge boost.
Yeah, probably Reddit.
Sure.
Probably
not
Reddit.
LinkedIn.
But they got a huge boost because people lost Instagram and Facebook, and so they had to go somewhere, and Twitter really benefited.
Snapchat.
Oh,
TikTok,
bummer.
your favorite?
They're next
TikTok.
then, right?
Could have been TikTok. They're next, yeah.
Actually, it was Snapchat. Snapchat is part of the properties,
Is that
aren't
still
they?
a thing?
Are they part of that? I'm not sure.
Nah, I don't know.
But I do know that there were a lot of conspiracy theories around this too. So I'm curious. Or I was glad to hear kind of your explanation, because there's a Facebook whistleblower testifying in front of Congress this week as well. And
Great timing.
This hasn't been an epic week for Facebook.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works at Facebook, and I haven't called this week. I'm giving.
They're
some
probably
space.
a little busy.
Well, and there's that shareholder lawsuit that the company spent over $1 billion to protect Mark Zuckerberg from a lawsuit. Like,
Is that wrong? Should they not have done that?
There's several things that are going on. It's certainly bad timing for them. But on a positive note, the next time you or your friend have an outage at your workplace and your boss asks you why you couldn't prevent it, let them know that even if you had billions of dollars in your budget, this type of outage could have happened.
That's true.
Can happen to anybody. Well, I'll be curious if we do a Deja News in the future to talk about when Facebook released their actual, post-mortem.
And they probably will, because this wasn't a hack, right? So it wasn't that somebody broke into the system, and that's where they start hiding the details because there's litigation. So in this case, I'd be surprised if they didn't just come clean and say, like, well, we know what it'll be. It'll be some kind of continuous, like a CI/CD tool or an automation tool. So they automated some rule to push out a router config and botched it across the board, and but we'll see.
Well, as I learned watching some of that whistleblower testimony today, Facebook is nothing if not transparent. So I'm sure we will get all
Fact.
of the answers. Yes, super fact.
If you enjoyed that segment, be sure to check out our entire podcast available in the playlist right here. And you can always subscribe to stay up to date with the latest tech news and other happenings in the IT world. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes. I hope to see you there.